There are two types of Kombi vans. One with a brand new engine, and one that desperately needs one.
Squeak music.
Welcome to Van Life Logic. Now that's the most I've driven this van since I've owned it. Unfortunately, not long after I got it back, I realized how much work I had. But this isn't to reduce any credibility of the video I'm about to give you. Hi everyone, how you doing? Great, grand, spectacular! I'm here to talk to you about which van to buy. Which van to buy? Which van to buy? Wunderbar! Sorry. Today we're going to be talking about which van to buy. Now there are huge variables and angles to look at this whole thing, and I think you need to know what you want. If you plan on just having a weekend van, if you plan on trying to get up rock climbs, if you plan on looking dope as fuck and up in your Instagram account, all these things come into play when looking at vans to buy. Frankly, the latter, looking cool, not really my jam, so I'm going to bag the fuck out of you on the first choices, which is the Kombi van. The Kombi van is very popular as far as I've seen on Instagram, van life hashtags and things like that. I believe that all these van kind of things come into categories, which is practicality, affordability, and ego, and I think that Kombi is in the ego section. It is in no way practical, it is terribly unaffordable. The use value of a Kombi van, how useful it is, reflected in dollar signs, I would say $500 for a mint condition Kombi. They're shit, they run like shit, they're very unreliable, they're difficult to drive, they steer like crap, they overheat, unless you have the Mitsubishi engines in them, because they don't originally come with a cooling system. There's no radiator.
Man, you've got to understand that, like, if you got love, you don't even need a cooling system, man. Like, you're gonna get your way, like, that's cool, man. Like, you make a sandwich for somebody, like, that's all you really need.
It reminds me of when Eve and I were at this doof. Yeah, we go to Bush Doofs, what of it? We were at this doof, and Eve was eyeing off this Kombi van that had all these fairy elf paintings all over them. They had these really awesome rims, like chrome fucking fat-ass rims. And Eve was like, man, how cool would it be to own one of them? I'm like, man, I'm surprised it even made it into the doof grounds. Like, because there's like a couple little hills, a little bit of gravel on the way to the doof site. You know, it probably had about $8,000 tacked onto the outside of it, the way it looked. On the way out, after everybody had been obviously cooked off their heads and dropped a shitload of acid and melted into puddles, K-holing and whatnot, on the way out, guess who was the only vehicle stuck on the side of the road trying to wave down people for help?
You guessed it, sir.
You look gangster as fuck, stuck on the side of the road. And that's what I say to everybody who wants a Kombi van. You will look really cool, broken down on the side of the highway. I'm not sure exactly the history down to a T, but I'm pretty sure Hitler was asking these car manufacturers to make a Volkswagen that was so cheap that common folk could buy it. And he was like, that is really good. How much is it going to cost? And they were like, X amount of dollars. He was like, nah, make it cheaper. It's got to be cheap. Just make it as cheap as you can. It's got to be cheap. That's how the Kombi was born. Do you really fucking want one of them? Fuck no. Anyway, I fucking digress. Bedfords are definitely in the same category. They suck cocks and dicks. Steer clear. Anything that looks gangster as fuck. Let's move on. Let's go to practicality. You've got these Sprinter vans and the equivalents, like the new VW vans and things like that. And these Sprinters are super popular. Sprinter conversions, like a big hashtag. It's mostly rich kids who can afford to buy a fucking Sprinter. I would never buy a Sprinter. The only reason that I did is because I can fix it unbelievably cheap. I have a hoist at my disposal, I have $3 million worth of mechanic tools, and I sort of know a little bit about what I'm doing. Otherwise, I wouldn't fucking dare. In fact, in the rebuild of this Sprinter van, I went to the Mercedes dealership like 10 times to get prices on parts that it needed, and 9 times out of 10 I walked out of there with nothing. I ended up only buying 2 pieces from the Mercedes shop, which was glow plugs and that front windowsill that you saw in the first van build video. I basically manufactured anything that I really needed that I couldn't get non-genuine. Like the battery tray. The battery tray! Yo! Alright, the battery tray they wanted because they use a fucking stupid steel. My old battery tray was rusted when I got it. I went to Mercedes, They wanted, I think it was like $280 for a battery tray. I was like, fuck that, bruh. Ain't happening. Not a fucking chance. I ended up building a battery tray out of, because this was an ambulance, the floor was made out of stainless steel, and I cut a square and built the template off of the old rusty one, and built a stainless steel battery tray.
My design for the battery tray is probably a lot better than anything Germany will ever come up with.
The only reason I say practicality is because of the size. Now, if you're a shit driver, and you have to be honest with yourself, if you're a shit driver, don't get a long wheelbase Sprinter van. You suck. Don't worry about the fucking kitchen. What good is a kitchen that's been snapped in half because you suck at parking? Worst case scenario, but you know what I mean. Which brings me to the final point, which is affordability. This seems to be the big go-to, and I totally concur with most people, with the Toyota Hiace as number one, but some Mitsubishi vans are sort of alright. The Toyota Hiace is, they're not really that big, but you can make them pop tops, and you can get high tops, and you can modify the shit out of them, and you can get them cheap, man. Petrol's a bit cheaper usually because they're not quite as good. They don't last as long. They don't do as many Ks. But I definitely think that the Hiace is the highest on the affordability to practicality ratio is pretty good. I'm a huge fan of Japanese engineering purely because of their history, the way things have panned out. I know nowadays Japanese engineering has apparently started to stabilize and even in some cases go downhill. But during the 90s and noughties, Japanese engineering was still fucking on point as far as the cheapest, best reliability in all parts in general. The Japanese did fucking well with building things that had a lower failure rate, and they mass-produced the shit out of it. This was super... What the fuck are you staring at? Kombis, Chevy panel vans, and Bedfords in this section. This is predominantly ego. Affordability, which is obviously your Japanese manufactured vans, which is Hiaces and Mitsubishis and whatever else is available in your country. Much better engineering. Parts are cheaper to buy. Usually pretty good on fuel because they're not as large. Practicality is definitely Mercedes Sprinters. The later model VW vans apparently have pretty good track records. But surprisingly enough, my vote would probably go towards the Ford Transit because they can be as big as these. They're squarer than these, so you've got more build-out capabilities in most year models. They're common enough that parts aren't too dear. They're designed quite well and are pretty fuel efficient. Ford Transits. If there was a Ford Transit that I could get and replace with this and still had a commercial air conditioner, I would have got a Ford Transit by far. Diesel or petrol? If it's petrol versus diesel, a petrol has to have less Ks for it to be worth as much. But in most cases, diesels are better on fuel. So as far as affordability goes, you add like 10 points when you get a diesel. Although a lot of diesels are gutless as shit unless you get common rail turbo diesel. Common rail turbo diesel accounts for fuel efficiency, so it's better on fuel, and the turbo obviously gives you almost as much power as the petrol. If you plan on living in the van, it would be a good idea to get one that you can stand up in. I got very lucky with my genetics and being 5'2", in that I can actually stand up in this van, and I will be able to once I get the floor in, because I'm not going to insulate it and put the slats in, but I've got just enough head clearance that when it's built out, I'll be like here, and I won't have to crouch down. That'd be a bitch. I'd hate to live in a van that I had to do that. I guess my purpose of the whole video is like, if I can convince anyone out there to not buy a Kombi van, that's a success to me. So please let me know in the comments if you were about to buy a Kombi or a Bedford or anything like that and I changed your mind, because then I can die a happy man. Fucking sweet, man. Thanks so much for watching. You rock. See you next time.